My wife said I'm not our daughter's father. During a huge fight, my wife told me I'm not our daughter's father. My wife and I have a 6-year-old daughter. We've been married for almost 9 years. We got into a really big argument, which isn't unusual for us these days. We've been on the verge of divorce multiple times but always end up changing our minds. This time, she got so mad that she yelled at the top of her lungs, "She's not even your daughter," and he was a better F too. My wife's facial expression told me she immediately realized what she said, and did she regret saying that. Then she claimed she was just mad and said it just to be mean. "It's not true, blah blah." It made me start to think about when our daughter was conceived. We had been having marital problems even back then. We had actually kind of informally separated for a short time and I was pretty sure I was done with the whole thing, but we both changed our minds. I can't help but wonder if she was with somebody else during that time. She could have just said what she said to be cruel, but that's a pretty serious thing to say. I hate myself when I'm looking at my daughter and wondering if features I thought she got from me really aren't for me at all. She looks so much like my wife that it's hard to see much of anyone else in her at all anyway. I love my daughter. I love being a dad, her dad. I feel like I was meant to do it. We have such a great relationship. She loves her mom, but my daughter and I just have a special bond that my wife has said she's jealous of. That might be why she said what she did, I don't know. It wouldn't change how I felt about my daughter, but my wife would definitely no longer be my wife. It scares the poop out of me to think that somebody else could have some sort of parental right to my kid, even though I'm still legally her father regardless of DNA. It's not like a random guy is going to want to come along all these years later and try to establish paternity. Anyway, but it's still unsettling. I'm probably overthinking it and my wife was most likely just trying to be extra cruel, which is her defense mechanism in arguments, but I just wish I could stop thinking about it. Update, I realized that even though a large part of me really didn't want to know if she was telling the truth, I had to find out for the sake of my daughter. If I wasn't her biological father, there's just too great of a chance that she'd accidentally find out one day via an ancestry test or whatever new technology they have 15 years from now that she might want to do for fun. I wouldn't want her to find out that way. I wouldn't want to find out that way. It was also important to know just to protect both of us in a legal sense. I had to know just to be prepared. I bought an at-home test from the store and she just thinks it was the virus test that was done in the mouth. They offer sample process tracking, plus guarantee results online in 2 days once the samples arrive at their lab. Sure enough, the results were available within 48 hours of when the samples arrived. She's my daughter. She was always going to be my daughter, but biologically she's mine. I don't think I've ever felt so relieved by a test result in my life. The more I thought about it, after sharing my story here, the more I really began to believe that my wife's statement went beyond just trying to hurt me. She was definitely trying to hurt me to my core when she said it, but I started to feel pretty certain that she had slept with somebody else around the time our daughter was conceived and she either didn't know who the father really was or had believed for our daughter's entire life that I wasn't her biological father. My wife wasn't informed that I had done the test. I pretended like I had totally dropped the issue regarding what she said to me. I confronted her today. Our daughter went to a sleepover, so I knew it was really the only time I'd have any time soon. I definitely didn't want our daughter to be home when I informed my wife about what I'd done. So, I told her a white lie. I showed her the test box, had my online account pulled up on my phone, but not close enough to her that she could see results. I told her that we needed to talk about what she said about me not being our daughter's father, that it really hurt me and I couldn't get over it, and that I'd done a DNA test. Her panic was obvious. At that moment I knew she hadn't just made the statement to hurt me. There was something behind it. I told her that our daughter wasn't mine and I wanted to know who the HLL she slept with during that time. Did he know he had a kid? How long had she known about this? And did she know that it was considered paternity fraud? She started crying and was obviously so stunned by all of this that she didn't even ask me to see the actual test results. She should have demanded that, because she would have easily been able to see that I was bluffing. I at least would have got satisfaction from scaring her and essentially having proof for myself that she had been with somebody else and had at least believed that there was a good chance my daughter wasn't biologically mine. No, she told me who she slept with, begged for my forgiveness, begged me not to tell him about any of it, told me what a great father I am, and that I'm the only man she wants to be the father of our daughter. She told me she'd do anything as long as I swore to never tell this other guy the truth. This other guy is somebody who I grew up with and was friends with. I haven't talked to him in years now. At the time that our marriage was on the rocks and our daughter was conceived, I had been hanging out with him and a few other buddies pretty regularly. She supposedly couldn't stand him. He seemed to be acting like a good supportive friend to me during that time. He was a friend, but never the type of guy I'd want my sister or a good female friend who I actually respected to ever go out with. He was really good looking and he knew it, so he was cocky and arrogant, but women loved him. He slept with God knows how many women and has contracted a few STDs that I was aware of over the years. After my wife and I found out she was pregnant and our relationship greatly improved for some time, I stopped associating with him. She couldn't stand him and he started to annoy me. He's married now with 2 kids who are younger than my daughter. I've heard from other people that he's cheated on his wife and also developed a substance problem. I stay far away from him and although he's tried reaching out, I've kept my distance because I just don't respect the guy and think he's a scumbag. They had intimacy a few times after she found out I went on a date with another woman. She says she was so hurt by what I did and although she hadn't planned to sleep with him he convinced her to do it. She claims she didn't enjoy it and she's felt disgusted about it ever since. She felt pretty sure that he was our daughter's biological father this entire time, but never wanted him involved in our lives or for him to have any rights or access whatsoever to our daughter. She told me she'd do anything, including an amicable divorce, giving me full access to our daughter, letting me keep our house and not asking for any support, if I'd just agree to be our daughter's father and to never say a word to the slimy paw she thought produced our kid. I told her the truth after that. I could have continued to hold it over her head, but why? She's mad that I lied to her. I did lie, but she thought she had been lying to me about our daughter's paternity for 6+ years, so I called that even. In the end she ended up sobbing out of relief for several minutes straight and we hugged while she cried, but I don't forgive any of what she's done. Now I'm going to get a full panel of STI tests next week. I'm terrified to know where his PP has been. It's practically been in about every hole in our entire town, not to mention the entire college campus where he went to school. I've heard plenty of the stories. He's a effing bastard and I'm sad to say that he was revived after his last supposed overdose last year. Edit, my wife and I were informally separated at the time that I went on one date and she subsequently had intimacy with this guy. We didn't actually agree to see other people, but I told her I was done with our marriage and in my mind it was over. We were still living together and sleeping in the same bed so the lines were sort of fuzzy. I went on a date and it was a pretty innocent date. I didn't sleep with the woman or anything like that. My wife found out and went ballistic, screaming, chasing me down at work, calling me cold-hearted and saying, "Who does that? Who does that?" She was really upset, devastated, begged me to be with her again and to not divorce her.
I received an anonymous text message saying my fiancé has a girlfriend. I have been with my fiancé Caleb for over 2 years. We are supposed to be getting married in August. Up until this morning I thought we had a great relationship. No major fights, spend almost all of our spare time together. Our intimacy life is okay, I could use a bit more, but I'm not complaining, and I have always told him that I was game anytime he wanted to. I have not noticed anything to make me question him. I have had issues with trust in the past, but I have not had any suspicions that anything untoward was going on. I received 6 missed calls at about 3:30 this morning from 2 numbers I don't recognize. I answered one and no one spoke on the other line, so I hung up. The second number then called back twice, which I ignored and went back to sleep. I woke up this morning to 2 text messages from the second number saying, "Hey, this is Caleb's girlfriend name spelled incorrectly, and I've been seeing Caleb for a few weeks now and thought you should know name spelled right." I just replied, "And who are you?" to the text. I'm really numb, and have no idea how to proceed. Do I forward the screenshots to him and ask what the F is up? Do I wait till I get home from work and ask for his phone? I am so lost and confused. I had no suspicions whatsoever. Edit, I didn't say anything to Caleb until I got home. I think I had a suspicion that the texts were not legit, but I needed outside perception. I walked in the door and told him that we needed to talk, and showed him the texts. He legitimately looked confused, then I showed him my call log. He was blown away, then immediately offered me his phone. I looked through it, and found nothing. No hidden apps, nothing in the trash or call logs, nothing in his gallery, nothing in his social media. I had texted the person earlier that day asking if they had any proof, by way of screenshots, dates they were together, or photos. I wasn't salty in the messages at all. And I stated that we were supposed to get married in August. When I didn't hear back for about 8 hours, I sent another text saying I was calling BS, and that I didn't know what their endgame was, but I wasn't going to fall for it. About 19:45, they got back to me. "I had no idea you guys were engaged. He said you lived 2 hours away. Tell him to lose my number." I responded with, "Can you send me some screenshots? When did you see him last? Do you have any pics together?" He is denying everything. I'd appreciate it. About 5 minutes later they came back with, "Honestly, I have no interest in breaking up a marriage and I should have minded my own business. We slept together a few times and it really wasn't a big deal. I apologize for any issues I've caused." That really got to me, so my response was, "You helped, but it was his choice. I would appreciate having proof." Then I sent one right after this one saying, "And you should tell him yourself." After about 20 minutes I texted that this was BS again. They responded almost right away and sent this final message: "I'm at work. Can you stop? Stay with Caleb, don't, do whatever. I wanted to make you aware of something that involved you. I thought I'd be doing you a favor, but you continuously accusing me of making up bullshit and texting me 4 times after I don't respond for more than 10 minutes is making me think you should just keep him. Unless you've effed over someone, I'm not sure why you'd assume someone is effing with you. Also, I don't see what I would benefit from this considering he's engaged and lied to me about it and I blocked his number already. Have a good one." The tone in this one changes, and something said in a previous message changes my suspicions. I am originally from a town about 2 hours from where I live now, but I have lived here for almost 4 years. Caleb doesn't tell people where I am originally from. The city/metro area I live in has about 1.5 million people, and it is never asked. I was in an abusive relationship up until about 9 months before I moved here, and when we split he displayed very stalker-ish behaviors. The ex even went so far as to use a number spoofing service to contact me after I blocked him. Caleb gave up his phone easily, and without hesitation. His nonverbal showed genuine confusion regarding the whole situation. The conclusion that I drew was that this is someone from my past trying to either destroy my relationship, or test how strong it is. I'm thinking that whoever it is discovered that I'm in a relationship somehow, and wanted to shake it to see what would fall out. We are still together, and are still getting married. I forbid my racist mother-in-law to see my children ever again. My children are biracial. I'm brown and my husband is white. My children are brown like me. I'm also 14+ weeks pregnant. My husband's brother and his wife are both blonde and their 2 boys are very blonde. I always thought mother-in-law was decent and civil enough to be around. That changed, however, when the children were born. I started noticing very early on that she treated my children differently and was more attached to their cousins. She would say how the cousins reminded her of her sons and how they looked a lot like my husband and his brother. I felt uncomfortable by her remarks, but the real issue started when my children were old enough to notice the different treatment of them. In holidays and birthday parties, my children would get a fraction of the gifts their cousins did. Last Christmas was painful to live through, watching my little boy so distraught and confused when his cousins had received a pile of gifts each while he and his sister only received one gift each. I thought I had to do something about this. I suspected it had racial motives, but I didn't talk about these concerns with anyone but my husband, who wasn't really sure if that was the case. I just simply stated, however, that I didn't want my children to be exposed to this kind of treatment no matter why, and therefore I had decided my mother-in-law should see my children on their own whenever she's interested, but not in the company of their cousins. We love the cousins very much, and I didn't want my children to resent them for something they didn't cause. Mother-in-law tried to explain that this was only because we live further away, 2 hours, while the cousins lived just a few houses down. She knew them better. I didn't buy this and insisted on this solution. When one of the cousins had his birthday, we celebrated with him a day before. My daughter turned 4 a week ago and we had her party last Saturday. I had planned for mother-in-law to celebrate my daughter the day before on Friday, but she didn't show up. She made an excuse about her not being able to drive, so she needed to ride with my brother-in-law and his family. My heart sank, but I didn't want to create tension, so I let it pass. When it was time to open the presents, my mother-in-law took out 2 presents and gave one to each nephew. She then called my daughter and showed her a picture on her phone of a wooden car and told her that her present didn't arrive in time and she would send it forward as fast as she got it. The cousins opened their presents and they got toys. My son got nothing. He was so heartbroken that he just wouldn't leave my embrace the rest of the evening. My heart was swollen in my throat after what she did. It has always been a thing of hers to do. When it's one of my children's birthdays, she would get presents to all 4 children, but if it's one of the cousins, she would only get presents for the cousins. Thank God my daughter didn't understand much and she just ignored mother-in-law and continued opening the rest of her presents. But I have had it with my mother-in-law. I told my husband that she is under no condition allowed to see my children again. I'm done and I don't want her in our life until the children are old enough to decide for themselves. My husband thought I wasn't serious at first, and then he thought I was unreasonable. He probably doesn't realize yet how serious I'm about this. Whatever her reasons are for treating my babies this way, I don't care. I texted her my decision the morning after and she's been calling and texting my husband nonstop since. She's asking me to fix her mistake, but this ship has sailed a long time ago. I'm done. Relative wants my 9-year-old to cater an event. Gets appalled when I ask her to pay for labor. My child has recently gotten into baking. She's really passionate about it, and it has sparked most of our family members to stimulate said passion by requesting her to bake small items they happen to be craving right as they're coming over / have invited us over. They're always very small things like, "Ooh, I'd sure love some brownies" or similar, and since people asking / complimenting her genuinely makes her heart smile, I only support it and don't mind paying for the ingredients. Now, one of my family members is hosting a gathering and asked my daughter to bake 75 cupcakes. They said they would take her shopping for ingredients. She asked me if she could and I said sure. I supervise oven-related steps and have to be present. Afterwards I contacted said family member to get some specifics as to allergies and other nonsense and brought up the fact that she was so excited to have her very first paying customer. Said family member was apparently appalled at the expectation of paying my child for hours of labor and stated that since she is a minor and doesn't have a genuine business yet, she shouldn't expect payment because taxes. I replied that if she feels that strong, she should order from a genuine business because there is no way in any universe I am going to let someone exploit my child like that. She accused me of promoting child labor, and when I retorted that she appeared to be fine with said child labor until she had to pay for it, she hung up on me. I didn't expect a full hourly wage, just something extra to thank her for her hard work. She has been putting every cent she gets in allowance or earns towards more baking supplies. I expect she would have done the same with this money, but that's entirely up to her. If said family member decides not to pay, I am still going to let her make the big order, pay her in full, and take the food down to a local food bank so she still gets the money and the experience. As fellow parents, how would you have approached this situation? I feel like I potentially robbed my kid of an experience she would have enjoyed out of personal principle. Update: to those accusing me of trying to profit off of my child, monetizing something that should be fun, or being a SHD parent in general, go headbutt a moose. I sat my daughter down and explained to her that the relative did not intend on paying her, that she was welcome to do the work for free if she so desired, but that she also was allowed to decline her request. We proceeded to have an entire discussion about the differences between doing someone a favor, like a pan of brownies, and labor, like catering an event. I emphasized it was her decision and she would have my help and support whichever way she went. She ended up asking if it were possible for her to attend the event instead of receiving payment so she could see the people eat her cupcakes, and brag about making them, which the relative declined because it was a child-free event and she could not make exceptions. We both found this fair enough, and she requested a set of baking pans in sizes she doesn't have yet as payment, which the relative also declined because why should she give her gifts while it was the relative's time to be celebrated? She went on to say that my child was ruining the party by refusing to do dessert because she counted on it. My daughter was starting to feel guilty and I stepped in, gave her a list of local bakeries and at-home bakers she could contact and wished her a fantastic day. I reassured my kid and we went on to go shopping for the baking tins ourselves. 2 hours later, the relative, undoubtedly having contacted bakers/bakeries, called and offered my daughter a gift card for a local shop that sells all kinds of cooking and baking supplies. She happily accepted and we thought that was that. The relative really stepped up her game in making up for the nonsense as she arranged for my kid, and myself to supervise, to be allowed in the venue's kitchen and make the cupcakes there, as the venue owners, who also cater the venue, feel like young passion should be encouraged. I have ordered her very first tiny apron and she is beyond excited to experience a commercial kitchen, and watching her heart smile makes my mom heart happy. Edit. Today was the big day. This morning we went over to the venue where she was allowed to make a grand total of 76 cupcakes, because the chef found that 75 was an absurd number to order cupcakes in. She got to use professional materials and got tips and tricks from an actual patissier. Her smile didn't leave her face for half a second and she genuinely had the time of her life. She got everything she was promised as payment and got the business card of the chef she worked with. The promise is that if she's still baking when she hits 16, there'll be an internship waiting for her. My kid has been beaming all day. It was absolutely worth it. Husband wants me to get an abortion because he thinks I won't love my stepkids anymore. My husband Alex was previously married with his late wife, Lana, for 16 years. They had 3 kids: Jeremy M14, Nora 12F and Luke M3. Lana died when Luke was 5 months old. I met Alex a few months after Lana's death and we got married in January of this year. From the start I loved his children like mine. I always wanted children and I was so overjoyed when I suddenly got to be a stepmom. I love each of these children so much. None of them calls me mom, but I wish they did. Alex doesn't want me to erase Lana or take her place. I always respected Lana and her memories. Sometimes Luke calls me mom and I love it, but if he does that in front of Alex, he corrects Luke and shows Lana's photo and tells him that that's his mom, not me. I told him it's way too confusing for a 3-year-old. He basically doesn't remember his actual mom and only knew me since he was 10 months old. I understand Lana is the love of his life and I can't ever replace her, but it seems a little too much. Alex and I talked about kids and he told me he doesn't want one with me now. So I was fine with it. I'm still young and we can wait. But last week I found out I am pregnant. I was on birth control, so I was really confused. I took one more test and it was also positive. I thought Alex would be ultimately fine with it even if he gets disappointed at first. He got angry at me and counted if I actually took pills as I'm supposed to and made me take one more test. He asked me if I'll get an abortion and I said no. He didn't say anything more. He's been so distant from me. I'm having to sleep in the guest room because I can't sleep in the same room with someone who acts annoyed at my presence. We haven't talked much since last week. He told me either I'll get an abortion now or he will get a vasectomy soon. I think he's already booking a vasectomy date. I'm feeling like an outsider in our family. Edit. I'm 23, he's 38. I didn't say the ages because it doesn't matter to me, we're adults. Yes, I married the first person that seemed to love me. I'm a loser and my birth givers were losers too. I'm so effing dumb.